What are your plans for this morning, Nancy?
I thought I'd do a little shopping. There's a dance coming up at the country club and I'd like to get a new dress.
Then will you phone me about lunch? Or better still, how about eating with me, whether Mr. Olsted comes or not?
I'll be there.
All right. Drop in at my office about 12:30. If Mr. Olsted does accept my invitation, we'll try to find out something about Josiah Crowley's wills.
Any errands for me?
Yes, dear. Here's a list. And good luck with your detective work.
Thanks for your encouragement.
Whatever you do, Nancy, beware of those Sopham sisters. They would be only too happy to make things difficult for you.
I promise to be on my guard.
We've been standing here nearly 10 minutes. Send a saleswoman to us immediately.
I'm afraid I can't. There are a number of others ahead of you. All our salespeople are.
Perhaps you don't know who we are.
Indeed I do. I will have a saleswoman here in a few moments. If you will only wait.
We're not accustomed to waiting.
Such service. Do you realize that my father owns considerable stock in tailors? If we report your conduct to him, he could have you discharged.
I'm sorry, but it is a rule of the store. You must await your turn.
It's darling on you.
I kind of like myself in it. I'll take it.
It's been a real pleasure waiting on you, Miss Drew. But how I dread to see those Topham sisters come in here. They're so unreasonable. And they'll be even worse when they get Josiah Crowley's money. The estate hasn't been settled, but the girls are counting on the fortune already. Last week I heard Nada say to her sister, "Oh, I guess there's no question about our getting old Crowley's fortune. But I wish Father would stop worrying that somebody is going to show up with a later will which may do us out of it."
What luck, Dad. Did Mr. Olsted accept your luncheon invitation?
Yes. We are to meet him at the Royal Hotel in 10 minutes. Do you still think I should quiz him about the Crowley will?
Oh, I'm more interested than ever in the case. When I was at Taylor's, a saleswoman told me about how the Topham sisters have been counting on getting the estate, and Mr. Topham is worried about a later will being found that will say otherwise.
Well, it's not what you call evidence, but the old saying usually holds good. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Come, let's go. By the way, I haven't heard the details of the Crowley case. How are the Tophams making out? I understand other relatives are trying to break the will.
The settlement of the estate wasn't given to me, Carson. But I confess I followed it rather closely, because of something that happened a year ago. As the present will stands, I do not believe it can be broken.
Then the Tophams fall heir to the entire estate.
Yes, unless a more recent will is discovered.
Another will? Then you believe Crowley made a second one?
Of course this is strictly confidential.
Confidential. You may rest assured that whatever you tell us will not be repeated to anyone.
Well, I'll say this much. About a year ago Josiah Crowley came to me and said he wanted to draw up a new will. He indicated that he intended to spread out his bequests among several people. He expressed a desire to write the will himself, and asked me a number of questions. I took him to my office and told him exactly how to proceed. When he left, he promised to have me look over the document after he had drawn it up.
Then you actually saw the will?
No, strange to say, Crowley never came back. I don't know whether he ever wrote the will or not.
And if he did, there would be a chance that it would not be legal.
Yes. He might have typed it and signed the paper without a witness. In this state at least 2 witnesses are required, and 3 are advisable.
What would happen if the person were lording and had no witness, and wanted to make a will?
That sometimes happens. If the person writes the will himself by hand, and signs it, so there's no doubt the same person did both, the surrogate's office will accept it for probate.
Then if Mr. Crowley wrote out and signed a new will, it would be legal.
That's right. But there's another thing to remember. It's pretty risky for someone who is not a lawyer to draw up a will that cannot be broken.
If Josiah Crowley left any loophole in a will he wrote personally, the Tophams would drag the matter into court.
Yes. It's a foregone conclusion that the Tophams will fight to keep the fortune, whether they have a right to it or not. I believe some of the relatives have filed a claim, but up to the moment they have no proof that the later will exists.
Well, Nancy, did you find out what you wanted to know?
Oh, Dad, it's just as I suspected. I'm sure Mr. Crowley did make a later will. He hid it someplace. If only I could find out where.
It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
I must figure out a way. I want to help little Judy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nancy, would you do a little errand for me this morning?
Why, of course, Dad.
I have a number of legal documents which must be delivered to Judge Hart at Masonville sometime before noon. I'd take them myself, but I have several important appointments. I'd appreciate it if you would drive over there with them.
I'll be glad to go. Besides, it's such a wonderful day. I'll enjoy the trip. Where are the papers?
At the office. You can drive me down and I'll get them for you.
I put the top down so I can enjoy the sun.
Good idea. I haven't heard you mention the Crowley case yet today. Have you forgotten about it?
No, I haven't forgotten, but I must admit I am stumped as to where to search for clues.
Maybe I can help you. I learned that the two girls on River Road who expected to be remembered in the will are named Hoover. You might look them up on your return trip.
That's great. I'll watch the mailboxes for their name.
Thank you very much. I will need these directly after lunch.
The thunderstorm's on the way. I'll get soaked. I wonder if this is the Harvard place.
Oh my goodness. I guess I must have scared you silly when I screamed.
You're all right.
Yes, and I'm sorry I yelled. I came out here to check on our supply of feed for the chickens. I didn't think it was going to be a bad storm, so I didn't bother to go back to the house.
It's pretty bad.
Well, the storm terrified me. I didn't hear your car coming, and when it rushed in here, I panicked.
I'm Nancy Drew, and I drove in here because my car's hood wasn't working.
That's a shame. And you must get your clothes dried. The storm is letting up. Let's dash over to the house. Grace will help you too. She's my sister. My name's Allison Hoover.
Thanks a million.
Grace, I brought a visitor. Nancy, I want you to meet my sister. She's the mainstay of our family of two.
It is a real pleasure to meet you. We don't have much company. To tell you the truth, we can afford it. But today we're not talking about money. It's Allison's birthday and I've made a birthday cake. Nancy, if you're not in too much of a hurry, I wish you'd join us in a little celebration.
Why, I'd love to.
Grace's cakes are yummy. I'm not much of a cook myself. My department is taking care of the barn and the chickens.
Suppose you two go into the living room and wait. I'll bring in the cake and tea.
Do you two girls live here alone all the time?
Grace and I have been living here since Father died. That was 2 years ago. Mother passed away just before that. Their illnesses took every penny we had.
I'm terribly sorry. It must be dreadfully hard for two girls to run the farm by themselves.
Our farm isn't as large as it once was. We have only a few acres left. I know you are too polite to ask how we manage, Nancy. Grace helps a dressmaker at Masonville whenever she can get work. She makes all her own clothes and mine too, and I raise chickens.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Allison.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. May you have many more.
This is the nicest birthday I've had in years.
And it's one of the most enjoyable I've ever attended. I've never tasted anything more delicious in all my life. Grace, and you have a beautiful voice, Allison.
Thank you, Nancy. I've always wanted to take lessons, but as you know, voice training is pretty expensive.
That is a lovely painting on the wall you have.
Uncle Josiah Crowley gave it to us. If he were only alive now, things would be different.
He wasn't really our uncle, but we loved him as much as though he were a relative. He lived on the farm next to us. That was when Mother and Father were alive. All of Allison's and my misfortunes seemed to come at once.
He was the dearest man you ever saw. Some people thought him queer, but you never minded his peculiar ways after you knew him. Uncle Josiah was very good to us. He always told me that he'd back me in a singing career.
Yes, Uncle Josiah had to say Allison sang as sweetly as a bird and he wanted to pay for lessons with a famous teacher. But after he went to live with the Tophams, he never said any more about it.
He never liked it with the Tophams, though. They weren't kind to him, and he used to slip away to visit us.
Uncle Josiah often said that we seemed like his own children. He brought us many nice gifts, but we loved him for himself and not his money. I remember, though, the very last day we saw him alive, he told us I had planned a big surprise to make you girls happy. But I can tell you now what it is. You'll see it in my will. Those were his very words.
And then the Tophams got everything. He must have changed his mind for some reason.
It's hard to believe he would forget his promise to us.
So, wouldn't it be wonderful if the later will could be found?
Yes, I've heard that Mr. Crowley told other people he was leaving money to them. The Turner sisters, for instance. Do you know them?
Slightly.
My dad is a lawyer and he and I are very much interested in this case. He even mentioned you girls, and to tell the truth I was on my way here to talk to you.
You say your father is a lawyer. Grace and I are positive Uncle Josiah made a later will, though, if we could only engage your father to help us prove this. But I'm forgetting, we wouldn't have any money to pay him if we should lose the case.
Don't let that worry you. This is your birthday and you must be happy, Allison. My special wish for you is that before you're 1 year older, you'll inherit some of the Crowley money, so that you can take those singing lessons.
Do come to see us again.
Yes, please do.
I promise I will, as soon as I have some news.
I'm glad you're here, and safe. I was worried about you when that violent storm came up. When Hannah phoned me that you weren't back, I began to regret I had sent you on the errand.
I'm back, all in one piece. I delivered the papers to Judge Hart and learned that he and his wife saw Mr. Crowley in Masonville a couple of times. Also, I talked to the Hoover girls. I came to their farm for shelter from the storm and they mentioned how they knew Mr. Crowley and that he had made them a promise of inheritance in his will. And they are really struggling right now and need it. Do you think you could help them?
From what you say, it does look as though Josiah Crowley might have made another will which included them as beneficiaries. I'll be glad to do anything I can to help the Hoover girls. Why don't we invite them for dinner? Perhaps if I ask them some questions, it will recall helpful incidents. How about tomorrow?